Hey, John, Dave Cooper.
Hey, Dave.
How are you today?
You've got one up on me, man. You're 3 hours ahead. You're more awake than me. It's Monday morning here.
Well, that's all right. We're going to wake you up. Don't worry. I'm full of energy. So
You are.
I'll carry some of that over for you. Well, listen, it is awesome to finally be able to have a sit down or a virtual conversation with you here on LinkedIn Live. I'm just so grateful you took the time. So why don't we start off by talking about who is John Burns from Johns Burns Real Estate Consulting? Can you give us a little bit of background on how you even got into all this?
I think we should ask my daughter. She'd probably you get a better answer out of her. I really love work. I love what I do. So my wife will first word out of her mouth will be workaholic, and I admit it. I surround myself with really, really smart people. I know you've had a few of them on your show, both clients of mine as well as our team members, and that's what fires me up. I don't ever want to retire because I want to be hanging out with really smart people all the time. I also say I love a challenge. I would say this current environment, it's April 27th, is definitely challenging. So I guess, although it's hard, I am enjoying the challenge. But I'm not enjoying some of the actions that our industry is making or that I've had to make, obviously.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about what you do at John Burns.
So it's pretty simple. We do two things. So we have a subscription business that I started when I started the company 19 years ago, but I've been doing it in a prior life. The commercial real estate industry is really, really good at monitoring housing cycles and knowing when the risk is high and the risk is low. And I used to work in that business, and the residential industry had nothing. So we're the ones that the companies are outsourcing to us. John, hey, what's going on in the housing market? What does the forecast look like? Probably much more importantly than that, is it a good time to load up and bet heavy, or a good time to take some chips off the table? We've been pretty well known for saying for the last 2+ years, it's a good time to take some chips off the table, right, just because of the fundamentals, not because of coronavirus or anything like that. And so we're trying our damnedest to help people navigate through this, and we've got a huge staff of people that can help them.
Yeah. Can you give us some examples of what you guys would do to help people navigate? You're looking at the data, you're trying to figure out the trends, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so the research side of our business, we collect everything we possibly can, talk to as many smart people as we can, try to puzzle the whole thing together for building products companies, for home builders, land developers, apartment developers. Single family rentals become a huge part of our business. And then when people have customized decisions they're going to make, M&A deals that they're doing, land acquisition, strategic assignments, the consulting business is the other half of our business. And we spend a lot of time with them, understanding their risk reward profiles, what they're passionate about, and helping them make the best decision they can.
Yeah, sure. So can you give us some examples of how you see the industry shifting from whether it's rental units, production builders? What are some of the shifts that we're looking at right now?
Well, there's a lot of shifts heading into this. And
Sure.
then I think there's going to be a lot of shifts heading out of this. So our business has gone absolutely ballistic with build for rent studies. We're brand new build for rent communities, tons of money flooding in. People who didn't think that was a decent business now know that's a great business. It's not overbuilt, so I think it's going to be the first industry to recover from this too. So I think that's a huge shift. And people huge naysayers, the home builders thought this was the dumbest idea ever. Now it's as much as 12% of their sales to these guys. They're building communities for them. A client of mine who had a cabinet business is now trying to do offsite construction purely for rent, which actually makes more sense to me because the pace at which you can lease these out is easier to predict than the pace at which you can sell them. So there's a lot going on. But what I see going on with the builders is they're downshifting. I mean, they're laying people off. They have stopped land development virtually altogether. They ended up with a bunch of spec homes accidentally due to some cancellations. So the industry is hitting the brakes really hard right now.
Yeah, and we're feeling it across the industry and people that we're talking with as well. But I'm also hearing this is a good time to ramp up for when we come out of this as well with land purchases and so forth. Are you hearing the same thing?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I am hearing that from people who want to do it with other people's money.
Right. Okay. That would make good sense.
And there's a lot of land acquisition people who are transaction oriented, who land brokers, who are saying that, and the money to back that is saying, I hear you, but it's too early.
Right. Well, maybe everybody should shift their focus and fill their swimming pools with oil right now, right? Because that might be a good purchase.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Negative interest rates in Europe. How does that work? I mean, there's some really weird things going on.
Yeah, there is. So what about John Burns Real Estate Consulting? Are you guys having to shift in what you're doing, or is it status quo?
Oh, it's definitely not status quo. We've shifted quite a bit. In fact, we have a Monday morning call where literally I have shifted to now doing PowerPoint presentations to educate our team on how we are shifting. Right. I mean, our clientele, our skill set completely shifts in an environment like this. I mean, our team that was really good at helping people make good land acquisition decisions and consumer research now needs to shift to, it's not about developing something to make money. It's actually recovering as much cash out of the development as you can. You have to be financially astute. We have seen we've seen a lot of distressed money already come in. Fortunately, a lot of these guys were our clients 10, 12 years. I mean, companies I've not heard from in more than 10 years are back. And that's a completely new mindset for us. It actually, 2008 was one of our best years ever. I mean, we can do really well in this environment. Once the transactions I'm talking about happen, they haven't really happened yet.
Sure. And how's your team been handling the transition? Everybody moving in the right direction and pulling together pretty strong?
Well, I think we were pretty early to this, so we had to make some tough decisions on staffing. So we've already done that. But what I told the staff last Monday, like, look, we ripped the Band-Aid off and we went deep. And most of the people we let go were ones that we had just hired, weren't even trained, and they were sitting in their house with nothing to do and don't have the skill set we need going forward. That's not all of them. But now I'm saying, look, this is the team. We've already right-sized to be able to survive what happened in the Great Recession. And we had a great team, but now we've got the greatest of the great team, and we're moving forward. So I'm working really hard on getting everybody to do that. And I've got 10 people who were with me 10 years ago during all of this. And they're like 100% behind me. We did this before. This is the right thing to do. Probably the most important thing that the people under 30 don't understand, Dave, is they are going to learn so much over the next couple of years. Because when the market is going good, everything kind of works. Some things work better than others.
That's right.
So when the market's like this, you really see what works and what doesn't. And my staff is already saying, like, oh my God, I have one of my teammates, I talked to her this weekend. She said, I've learned more in the last month than I did in the prior year. This is crazy. She goes, you're totally right. So there's a lot of positives to focus on, particularly if you're new to the industry.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, hard times always causes an education, for people, and whether you're young or old, in that aspect altogether. And I will vouch for you that you have a very, very smart team. I've been fortunate enough to interview Sarah Newton Mahoney and Jenny Lance and Steve Bastian, several times. You definitely have a skill set on how to hire people, at least from what I can see from the outside looking in.
Yeah, no, I think we do too. And I've turned to all three of them and I said, look, I'm looking to you to take us out of here.
Right.
What Steve is doing in the building products, our upside there is massive. And we are actually during the first few weeks here, we've been growing our research business, thanks to Sarah. And Jenny's using a lot of her design skills to now advise building products companies on how designs are going to change, instead of just advising builders and architects on what the trends are.
Sure. So all right. So you advise on design, you advise on product and supply chain stuff. Can you maybe give us the broad view of everything, you know, kind of like what divisions or exactly what it is you focus on in the different areas. Because I mean, I speak to everybody, and every time I turn around, I'm like, John Burns does that as well. John Burns has a podcast even.
Yeah, Dean Worley runs that. He's another one of our great team members. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, why I love my job is I'm sitting in the middle of all these like really smart people that do all these really different things. And, you know, the guy from Home Depot is saying, here's what we're seeing. And the guy from the single family rentals, here's what we're seeing. And we're doing a lot. Our team is surveying everybody and learning a lot. And I mean, we don't do what you do. We don't help with construction, but we help people understand what's going on in the market. There's a plaque I got from my dad that someone had given him a long time ago that has on my desk. It says, "No one can take the ultimate weight of decision making off your shoulders, but the more you know about how things really are, the lighter the burden will be." And that's what drives me. Is like you're making big decisions involving tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, and the more we can inform you, hopefully, the better the decision is. And that's what we're doing.
Right.
From more a macro standpoint, not a product standpoint.
Sure. Would you say the favorite part of your business is working with your team?
Yeah, working with our team and working with our clients. I view them very similarly. I can't wait to get on the phone and learn from all of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Or on Zoom, I should say.
Right.
We don't do phone anymore.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, you know, how do you see this market different than the 2008 market?
Yeah, I think this is somewhere between 2008 and 2001. So I'm old enough to remember that 2001 was 10 years after the S&L crisis in the early 90s, and that's what I started my career in. And the reason I bring that up was housing was 10 years after a massive correction that honestly felt a lot like 2008. It just did it in different regions in different years, so it wasn't as big of a national correction. But you talk to anybody in Texas about what happened in 08 or California, what happened in the 80s, or California, what happened in the 1990s, they'll tell you it was just as bad as 2008 for the most part. But the reason I say 2001 is we were not overbuilding. Like the industry was very disciplined. We were in great shape. We had maybe a little bit of an affordability problem, but not a crazy one. Then we had a massive recession in 2001 that was led by stock corrections. Greenspan dropped interest rates, and housing led the economy out of it. So I think housing is actually better positioned than a lot of other industries to lead us out of this. But when you lose as many jobs as we're losing, it isn't like housing isn't going to get punched in the face. So it is. And then the other parallel is, as I said, Greenspan came to the rescue in 2001. He dropped the Fed funds rate by 5.5 points. The federal government is coming to the rescue right now, too, just putting money in everybody's checking account, employers and employees. So it's somewhere between the two is what I think it'll be.
Yeah. And do you think it's going to take a long time to come out of this?
Well, define come out.
Well, I think maybe get back to where we were before we went in.
I will tell you with 100% 99.9% confidence it's going to take years.
Yeah.
I mean, before where we came in means that all the people who just got laid off, all of them need their jobs and incomes and net worth back.
Right.
I don't see that happening this year.
For sure.
And there's a lot of conversation about V's and U's. A lot of the people who lost their jobs are going to get their job back. When the economy falls massively and then comes up a little bit, that's no longer a recession. So there's a lot of positive things out there that are getting spun as if we're going to be back to where we were in February. There's almost zero chance of that happens anytime soon. And that's why people are doing reductions in force, because they see that.
Right. You made a good point in regards to the job losses that are happening. And, do you feel that's going to contribute to the affordable housing crisis that we're already facing in this country? And is that why, and my follow-up to that is that why the rental market's going to really pick up more?
I mean, job losses, they hurt the apartment market, the rental market, I should say, far more than the for sale market, particularly this one, which it was the Disney workers and a lot of people that worked in lower income jobs who got hit the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
And single family rental, some of the guys play in those lower price points. I think they're going to get hurt by that. The difference is in single family rental is, even though there's been a lot of discussion about built for rent, there actually hasn't been that much built. So in the apartment market, where we have a 33-year high in construction right now, and I know there's a lot of offsite construction of apartments. That's going to dump a 33-year high supply of vacant apartment units on the market that are going to need to get leased up, in addition to the vacancy that's being created in existing apartments right now. That's going to take the apartment market a long time to recover. Single family rental is not going to have that problem. And even though I don't think the foreclosures are going to play out anywhere near as dramatically as they did last time, there's going to be some people who go through foreclosure but still need a place to live. Right. I was living in a house. I have a lot of stuff. I have kids and I have dog. I don't want an apartment. I want a single family rental home. I think that to me is clearly going to be the early recovery.
Sure. I agree with that. And I also agree. And I think what you're saying with the offsite market, it has seen a shift to a lot of rental and commercial structures being built in offsite. Do you see this market shift pushing more builders, more developers towards offsite construction versus traditional site construction?
I mean, speaking from the builder's standpoint, if you can build it for me cheaper and higher quality, I'm all in. And, I think that was starting to play out.
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges now is what's their pace of construction. So if I was doing 3 homes per community in all my communities every month, they're shutting it off right now. So I think what the new normal pace of construction is going to be a bigger challenge for them. I do think almost certainly they're going to have fewer floor plans, simpler floor plans, which will lean more, I think, maybe to building it in a factory, but we'll see.
Sure. That kind of plays back to kind of what Jenny Lance looks at a little bit as far as the way people are designing. Is that correct?
Yeah. And one of the interesting things with what Jenny's been doing is the trend was toward more high density. I'm not talking about high rises, but just, more 12 to the acre detached or 18 to the acre or 20 to the acre attached. The question now is that going to reverse itself or not?
Right.
I don't think so. When you're talking suburbs, I do think the urban areas may see a little more pain, at least over the next year than other areas.
Sure. Well, listen, everybody, we are on live with John Burns from John Burns Real Estate Consulting. And if you have questions for John, if you have questions for me, what the heck, send them out of here. I'm trying to weave my way through John's company. It confuses me because I have so many different directions to go because you do so many different things. So I'm having so much fun just trying to pull it all together and really pick your brain, John. So this is great. So if you're out there watching, please hit that like and share button, and also send us your questions. And in about 5 minutes here, we're going to have a Q&A session with John. So John, I got a list of notes here that I was going to go through and ask on some of these things, and I think I've hit quite a bit of them. What advice would you give to builders, developers, architects, in this market, big and small? Just looking at this, is there any advice you're giving any of them that you'd give to your clients that would be pertinent for our audience to just maybe hear?
Yeah. So the first one I'll do is just very self-serving, but I mean it. We've for 7 weeks in a row now, we've done a Thursday afternoon webinar where we're taking everything we've learned that week and put it into a 1-hour condensed webinar. And the kudos I'm getting for that are unbelievable. The CEOs are all on it. And the reason I'm saying that is people are having to figure out what is going on. The world has got so much information out there. Some of it is very factual but misleading, like we just talked about, like a V or U-shaped recovery. That's the economy. That's not necessarily housing. And more importantly for your listeners, that's not necessarily your business. If you're an architect who's heavy in multifamily, you probably should be studying demand and supply and what's going on with multifamily to project your business. And architects are passionate about drawings, not studying demand and supply.
Right.
So you need to understand the facts about what's going on in the economy to decide how to run your business. And that's what we're passionate about. We're not passionate about some of the other stuff. So that's the role we play.
Sure. How do people find this webinar? Can you send it to me, or we can put it in the links after this?
Well, you got to be
anybody.
You got to be a client. So talk to Sarah,
right.
who you know, or talk to me.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got about 270 clients now, probably a couple thousand people on the webinar tuning in, trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
And what's really great for me about it is I always end it with like, what did I get wrong? What am I missing? And then 3 or 4 or 5 people reach out and say, you missed this, you missed that. I mean, one thing that's very interesting right now is that the markets are playing out very differently. You think the coronavirus would be impacting every place that's got stay at home? I mean, they are still building in Texas. The unemployment filings in Texas and Florida, despite having Disney World,
right.
have been very low. The economy in Tampa almost looks like it might even be almost as strong as it was at the beginning of the year. Las Vegas, which I think should be the poster child for job losses, is actually seeing decent home sales. So there's some really fascinating things going on. And going to this, like the apartment people are letting their lease expire and moving into a single family rental home, because who wants to be in an apartment with 300 other people when COVID is going on, when you can go rent something lower density. Right. So there's some very interesting shifts going on that I never would have anticipated. So we've been learning a lot from our clients this whole time.
Yeah. Do you have any data? Can you elaborate on why that is? Because you're right. I mean, Las Vegas, with all the casinos, everything shut down. Well, I mean, the casinos, are they just paying everybody's bill to get through this, or are they, like what's happening?
On Vegas, I do not know. I do not know. So some of these other markets, I think, are a little bit cultural. I mean, if you look what happened in Texas after the big hurricane, I mean, everybody rolled up their sleeves, cleaned up, and got back to work. There's certain cultures that I just think are like, we are not going to get knocked down. And I think that would be one of them. There's other places that everybody's, it's a different attitude.
Right.
There's some of the generalizations you might have about different geographies. You're starting to see them, that they're more than just generalizations; they're facts.
Yeah, right. So somebody that's watching say, hey, I don't really have the budget to do John Burns. You have a podcast. What does the podcast do? Because anybody can be part of the podcast. Is that accurate? Yeah.
No, we do two free emails every week. Every Friday we do one called The Light, which is opportunities ahead. I mean, we do give away a lot for free. The podcast, we do about 2 of those a month. Dean Worley hosts that. Dean's far more entertaining than I am to hang out with, and he asks really great questions. In fact, the podcast he just did with maybe a lot of people don't know who Emil Haddad is, but you should. Was just amazing and uplifting. And I know you were in the military. He and saw some horrendous things, I'm guessing, during those years. He was in Lebanon for 11 years, worried about a bomb landing on his head in the 80s. Really put in perspective when times are tough, really tough, compared to what's going on right now, which is tough, which it was really inspiring. Yeah. And now he runs a publicly traded land development company.
Right. It's interesting, guys like that. And, you're right. I was in the service. You can put things into perspective a little bit easier sometimes when you see some of the, really, really bad things in life. It's easy they call it a flashback, right? You can easily go back there and be like, all right, life is not as bad as we think.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, for sure. When is that podcast? Is that weekly or monthly?
It's about bi-monthly, where we don't have the cadence going quite perfectly.
Right. Well, how about we do some call outs and we jump into some questions? How are we doing, Jennifer? Oh my, a book. You ready?
Bring it on.
All right. Let me see here. So these are the shout outs, Jen. All right. We'll save some of those for last. Mark Lewis, some big publics in Arizona are still buying raw land for deliveries in February 2021 in Phoenix, based on the seller's comments. So that's more of a comment than a question from Mark Lewis.
Yeah, and in fact, I just talked to the largest land broker in the country, Greg Vogel, Land Advisors, who's in Phoenix. Said there's a lot more transactions going on than you might think, particularly the build for rent guys.
Right.
And I am hearing those deals are getting retraded and the terms are different. So don't take that to mean that the land market hasn't shifted at all. I think it probably has. There are certain builders too that have a strategy of always being land light. Those guys always are buying. Or maybe if they shut off, it's for 3 or 6 months, but not for very long.
Right. Okay, next question. In fact, hey, listen, if you're listening, now's the time to get your question. You want some free advice from John Burns himself, now is the time. So submit them in the comments. All right, this one also is from Mark Lewis. Can we get a model ordinance that allows conversions of single-family residential to duplex homes in the same subdivisions? We need to use this downturn to push major reforms in the land use area and speed up standard plan permit reviews. Did you get all that?
Yeah, but I mean, people are going to think differently coming out of this, but that's a city by city thing, right?
Right.
So one of the more interesting things with the cities, they had been pushing towards higher density and transit oriented, and if you go super high density, that could increase the risk of you catching something from somebody else, particularly if it's in an elevator serving building. So
right.
I'm expecting the densities to shift down, not up, and that seemed like it was a little bit more up. But a townhome is not really significant density. Sure.
So with what's happened with COVID, that shift is based just on the current environment and the current thinking that because this is going to stick with people for quite some time.
Yeah, quite some time. I think for a year, maybe it will. Yeah. People said in 9/11, people were never going to move back to New York. And frankly, New York boomed. Not right away, but boomed. Sure. I think that one of the more interesting questions I don't have the answer to is where are employers going to relocate now? Because they were moving urban. Are they, what percentage of their staff are they going to let work from home full time? That will be good for the suburbs and exurbs. So I'm thinking it's the places further from the job centers that are going to be the beneficiaries. And just two anecdotes on that. Two communities I know of in the San Francisco Bay Area that literally are at least a 90-minute drive to work are doing pretty well right now. And I think that's the buyer profile who's now got the okay from his or her boss to work from home.
Sure. We didn't talk about any of those stats. Are you following the employment stats within your community as far as the mental shift to, wow, we really can do a lot more without having everybody be in the office and the overhead of an office? Are you going to see a big shift in that, or is that a temporary shift?
Well, we don't really have data on it yet, and we have a chief demographer, Chris Porter, who's all over it. But everything right now is very qualitative. Actually, we don't really have data on it yet. Okay. But if I can pick the more anecdotes I can pick up from our clients, like I just picked up, the more confidence I'll have that, hey, this work from home thing is going to shift where people live, and probably they want a better home office where the door shuts, right?
Yeah, well, that is for sure. I mean, people are making home offices out of closets and basements and dining rooms these days.
Right.
So, all right, another question. Alistar Sawyer, TLC module. Out of your younger staff you had prior to cutting deep, how many young staffers did you keep around to learn from the old scholars?
So I have a team of 10 people we call our Next Gen committee. 9 of them are still here. And I just had and they know I'm an open book and I don't tell them what to do. They tell me what to do. We just had a call with them last week for an hour, which is like, what should I be doing differently? Right. 2 of them are going above and beyond to advise me on how to communicate better. Here's what's going on in people's head. Here's what we need to see from you. Frankly, they've been some of my MVPs, and I'm turning back to them and saying, I know I let some people go your age. They were not you, and you're my future. Please, let's get through this together.
Yeah, right, right. Well, I mean, that's it. And, having that different way of thinking is a lot of the times how we move forward in a better light.
Well, we've been saying this for years. Like, why do our reports come in PDFs? Or like, John, we're getting rid of the PDFs now. We've already built the technology in Tableau to do dashboards.
Right.
We've ramped up what we're doing on our dashboards. And so in many ways, this is going to accelerate things that we wanted to do, led by their generation.
For sure. For sure. Well, that's great. And you got enough of them there to make that happen. Yeah. Another question from Alistair. Does the USA have rent-to-own model housing models?
There's a couple of them. I mean, it's not a government policy. It's just individual companies that do that. There was a startup one called Divvy Homes that specializes in the low end. I think there's a company called Zero Down that specializes in the high end. So those things do exist. Yeah.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Rick Hawkins. Labor constraints before pandemic will mean more constraints after the opening. Whether modular or not, will builders move to more on-site assembly of components like wall panels, panel floors, panel roofs, plus increased use of trusses, etc.?
I mean, I just think the builders want to build as high quality as possible at the lowest cost possible. And I think the modular industry has done a good job training them that it's not just about the cost per square foot, it's the cost including everything. I mean, that's going to be the answer to your question. I mean, if it's better and cheaper, they're all in.
Yeah, right.
I would challenge some of the labor assumptions. I think with construction shutting off here, I think labor costs are going to come back down. So even though a lot of people are probably going to retire out of this too, so you're going to have two sides of the equation here. You're going to have some of your best people who are in their 50s or 60s retire, but some of your younger workers who are skilled are less in demand than they were 2 months ago.
Right.
And I know two public builders that have already turned to every subcontractor and told them you're taking a huge haircut already, and that's going to flow down.
Sure. Okay. Follow-up question to that. Do you see metros changing zoning to allow for increased density or increased usage of accessory backyard units? ADU.
Yeah, that was going on already. I mean, the ADU thing is a great affordable housing solution. It really surprised me, though, because it does put pressure on the city with more residents on the lot, if you will, more, less parking space on the street, more kids in the schools. The part of the question here that I don't have the answer to you is what are home prices and affordability going to look like coming out of this? Right now, the stock market is betting that mortgage rates are going to fall and betting that home prices are going to fall too. So that's better affordability and less need for an ADU, but I still think there'll be a need for an ADU.
Yeah. Well, there was a follow-up question to that asking, do the ADUs have traction or is it just a geographic trend?
I mean, to me, it's a city by city decision on whether or not that's the right thing to do. It seems to be more prevalent in places like Los Angeles.
Right. Here's one back to employees. Will John Burns Consulting think differently about remote work opportunities when it's time to rehire?
So we actually have a whole strategy to hire great people who work remotely and have had it for years. And we call them our connected workforce, not our remote workforce. I mean, the guy who runs my building products came out of Kohler and wanted to move back to Green Bay. You're in. The person who's probably the best network person in the industry to run our surveys, Jody Kahn, wanted to live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and just moved to Jacksonville, Florida. I'm all in. Who helps her, Devin Bachman. She's married to a professional hockey player who was stationed in upstate New York, and now she's back at home in Denver, all in. I mean, for us, great people, we've been enabling you, and we think it's been a competitive advantage. I'm a little bummed that other people are now figuring it out.
Right.
We picked up some great people from home builders who got relocated because their spouse got relocated and the home builder couldn't accommodate them, and we did. Yeah, I'm always looking for people, and we'll figure out how to make it work. I don't care where you live.
Love it.
I will say along the way, we've learned it's a certain personality profile and a certain discipline who can work well from home. and not everybody. So you have to really screen to make sure that person can do it correctly.
Right, right. So does that mean you're gonna tell us all your hiring secrets right now?
I don't think I could rattle them all off.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a big deal. Hiring people is also a science,
Totally.
and you have to have a process in place. It's just not a handshake and hey, you're a nice person.
I will give you one tip, but there's a book called Who that really lays out the best way to do it. And the CEO of Radio Flyer, the little red wagon company, is in a CEO group I'm with, and he turned me on to that, and that has been huge for us. Huge.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, we'll follow up on some of those tips and questions. Every time we talk, you can give us a new tip. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, as long as you reciprocate, we're good.
Yeah. Whatever you need.
Yeah.
Robert Beeks. For me personally, the contracts with the government and states pulled me through 2001 and 2008. How do you see this market in the next few months, years? We hit on that a little earlier, but go ahead.
Oh boy, I don't know the answer to that, but it's one of the things I'm thinking of. What I'm seeing right now is they are pulling people through right now. In fact, I've heard a number of stories like airport construction things that were going to happen this summer are now happening now because nobody's in the way. All the school construction stuff is happening now because all the kids are out of the school.
Right.
What I worry about is all of those places rely on revenues that have disappeared. Hotel taxes, retail taxes, they're getting a bailout from the government. You've got elected officials saying, oh, they can just file bankruptcy. That's the issue I worry about. And I don't think that is going to impact 2020. But going forward, I wonder how much money there's going to be from those agencies to do much needed construction.
Right. You're right. I just drove past my kid's school this morning, and it is under construction. Yeah. Both of them.
What's better? Everybody's gone.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I agree.
You can get it done in half the time.
Wow. You know what? It's funny how much is really moving around. There's just so much shift that has happened.
Right.
So it's just a matter of how do we pay for it, or how is it going to get paid for? How does the whole that's the hard part. Like somewhere it's going to hit us. It has to, right?
They're just printing money to pay for it all. And I read a lot about the impacts of that, and from really smart people. And nobody's got a conclusion. Nobody.
Yeah, well, that's some big numbers to calculate.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me give a few shout outs here. We have John Sicilian, David Tulin, Etienne Gubler. He's the CEO of SIGA North America. Tim Montague, solar expert, Mark Lewis, Robert Beeks, Alastair Sawyer, Tiffany McCall. She's the chair of the head chair for the Building Systems Council for the NAHB. Thanks for joining us. I may mess some of these up. Gaurav Aurora and Macy Kessler from the Pulte Group also tuning in. Let me just take a quick look. How are we looking, Jen, on time? One more question. Ben Carson webinar this week. Will you be watching?
I didn't know that. Actually, I've got
right.
Ben Carson, the HUD secretary overseeing FHA. I've got contacts inside FHA and people who deal with that who are keeping me very informed. And I think I tend to learn more from those than press conferences.
Right. Well, listen, I have been trying to get Ben Carson on my show for quite a while now. So if you have any pull, let me know. I definitely, I'll help keep you informed with whatever I learn.
I have zero pull with him, but although I will tell you with a high level of confidence, I bet there are people further down the organization that know more about the details.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. John, listen, if you can give us some parting words, what would be a John Burns famous parting words at one of your big meetings that the rest of us don't get to hear?
We're going to learn a lot. And this is going to be a great lesson that we're going to take forward. And don't get too caught up in the day-to-day. Build a process where you can think accurately about what's going on instead of reacting to all these types of headline news, and just get really efficient and get through this.
Awesome. I love it. I really appreciate you coming on with us today.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
I think everybody else enjoyed it. And listen, everybody, if you're out there, John Burns, you can still put questions in if you want to learn something. And I'm going to take a quick look and we can ask John and we can send him a follow-up. Also, be sure to tune in tomorrow. We will be live on location doing a modular hospital set in West Islip, Long Island for Good Samaritan Hospital. We're putting in, I think it's 18 modules, John, addition for a hospital tomorrow, modular set. We're streaming live tomorrow at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and then Wednesday again at 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. So join in if you want to see some really cool stuff.
There's going to be a lot of hospital construction, I'm guessing, coming out.
Yeah, I would think so too. So, well, we're going to be there bringing it live to everybody. So, John, thanks so much. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon, I hope. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.